By far one of the easiest selection tools in Photoshop has to be the Quick Mask. Quick Mask is amazing, and it's been around for quite a few versions of Photoshop, right back to I think even CS1. And it is probably the most simplistic way of creating a selection. The way Quick Mask works and where you'll actually find it is by going to your Tools menu and going straight to the bottom. And what you'll notice is it's a little sort of rectangle with a circle inside of it. And to enable Quick Mask, you either click on it or you can hit Q on your keyboard. Once you've got it enabled, in order to actually make a selection, you need to either use a brush tool or a paint bucket or some form of drawing on your actual image or canvas. So the most common tool that is used with Quick Mask is the brush tool. So we'll select the brush tool from the tools menu. You can hit B on your keyboard to bring it up. And what you want to do essentially is select a brush size, and in this case I'm just enlarging the size to about 400 odd pixels. And what you want to do is you just want to draw on your actual image. Now the thing to remember when you're actually drawing on your image, that you have to make sure that you have black and white in your actual color palettes. Now the reason for this is that'll determine the density at which you're actually creating your selection with, or the density that you're actually applying your brush strokes to your image that then actually forms the selection. So what you'll notice is if I leave it selected on black and we just draw on over this seagull, you can notice that it's created basically a red circle. But if I was to reverse the actual color palettes around, switch the foreground from the background, if I was to use the white, you'll notice it's not actually drawing anything in Quick Mask. But if I was to actually draw over the Quick Mask selection that I've made using the black background color palette, you'll notice that it'll actually remove that coloring that I've made. Now you can change the coloring to whatever you want using Photoshop's settings. So you can change that. It defaults to red, but you can have any color that you want, and in some cases you might want to change that because the image that you're working on may be red and it may be difficult to see the areas that you're actually making Quick Mask adjustments to. Now if you wish to change the way in which Quick Mask mode works with regards to the color or how the actual adjustments made in Quick Mask perform, what you can do is double click on the Quick Mask icon and it will basically give you some Quick Mask options. So you can choose to select what the color indicates. So in this case I showed you how to quickly invert the selection if you've made it based on a masked area, but you can choose to actually reverse that and make that selected areas so that when you come out of Quick Mask that you don't need to necessarily inverse that selection. And then you can actually choose the color that you want to use for your Quick Mask. In this case red I find really quite useful. You can choose to set it to say green if you wanted to. Just remember to leave the opacity of the actual color selected for Quick Mask around 50%, because obviously you want to be able to actually see through the actual Quick Mask in order to make the selection. Now if you don't and you set it to 100, well, it's going to be a solid color as you can see there, and I can't actually see what's behind my actual Quick Mask selection. So that's something just to quickly take note of. So in order to make a selection using Quick Mask, we need to use predominantly black. Now if I was to use a gray, it would create like a 50% opacity type of selection where it's not a complete selection, and it's sort of in between. So when you actually make adjustments to that selection, they're not going to be as strong as if you had a selection that was at 100%. And you may want to do that for certain circumstances, but essentially you're going to use the solid black with the brush tool, and then you're going to actually zoom in on the areas that you want to actually select, and we're going to color them in. Now in this case I've got quite a coarse edge here, so I want to change that on my brush tool. I want to reduce the hardness to about 25%, so it sort of feathers and softens the edges of the actual adjustment that I'm making. Pardon me. So if we continue making the selection of the seagull and just going around the outline of it and also coloring in the inside areas of the seagull, what you'll so it's, you know, this is extremely, so as we continue to color in the actual seagull, as you can see, so as we continue to color in the seagull, you can choose to be really creative with your selection and also refine it by you know, grabbing the white color palette and just going around those areas that I've actually gone too far with my selection, and just touching up those areas. So quick mask is really quite useful for fine-tuning selections, especially if you've started the selection using a different tool and you just wanted to make a couple of quick adjustments to the selection. That's what it's really quite good for. But as you can see there, I've done a really rough, well, it's not that bad of a selection, just around the seagull itself, not actually its legs. And what you do, once you've made your you've made your brush strokes and you're happy with them, what you can do then is you go back to your quick mask in your tools bar, and you basically uncheck it. And what you'll see now is I have a selection around here. Now, something to take note of, depending on how you actually apply your quick mask, you may end up with an inverted selection. So if I just quickly zoom out here, you can see here that the selection made is actually, it's excluded the seagull. And that's not necessarily what I want. So by making by coloring in the areas that I wanted the seagull and actually coming back out of quick mask, it's actually inverted my selection and it selected everything else. So in order to fix that, you can either, one, color in all the areas of the image in quick mask, that particular red tone, except for the seagull, or a better way of doing it is just going to select and actually inversing your selection. So now it's only selected the seagull. That is the quickest way basically to get around that. So once you've made your selection, just as we've done before, we can actually make some density adjustments by using certain layers in order to fix up what we want to fix up, essentially. So the quick mask is by far the simplest and quickest way of making a selection without having to think too much. If you're very artistic, it's a fantastic way of diving in and just, you know, coloring in different areas, especially if you like drawing or painting. From that perspective, it is quite fun, actually. And if you ever get the chance to purchase, say, a Wacom tablet, and that's a tablet that allows you to have a pen that you can actually color in on a board that'll actually make all your adjustments instead of using a mouse, I recommend investing in one of those, because that's actually going to save you a lot more time than trying to do these types of detailed selections using a mouse, because it just gives you that extra bit of control that a mouse doesn't have.